joining us today. And the reason why you're able to join us today is because of Alexandria Nelson's efforts on doing Facebook and also emails, and then the text that I sent to you guys that continue to remind you about our program. We'll be doing a program next week as well too, and Alex will tell you a little bit more about that at the end of our session today. As she said earlier, both Laura and I have been working with Christi Nation as our business coach for about a year and a half. Christi is the founder of the Productivity Nation, whose mission is to help others find their powerful value to reach their fullest potential. Christi has taught management and communication principles for the past 25 years and has a master's degree in organizational and interpersonal communications. She's the president of Nation Training and Development and served as past president of Hot Springs National Park Rotary Club, past president of the Sister City Foundation, and is an active volunteer for Jackson House, which is here in Hot Springs. She's also taught over 1,000 students and faculty and consulted for the University of Arkansas Medical Sciences School, as well as Henderson State University, Louisiana State Anniversary in Alexandria, Louisiana. Christi writes the magazine called For Happiness Actions, and soon she'll be launching her own podcast called Happy Productive Life. Christi is a native of Hot Springs. She was actually born in the old St. Joseph's Hospital, downtown Hot Springs. She's a graduate of Lakeside High School. She lives, works, and plays in Hot Springs, and the surrounding community. So, Christi, without further ado, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, John. That was quite a mouthful. That's so nice that you went through all that. John called me this morning and asked me, Christi, were you born in Hot Springs? I said, I was born here. My dad was born at St. Joe. I'm about 7 generations deep in Garland County. So very proud of my Hot Springs hometown. I'm going to start to share the screen so we can get right to work. Now, I see that Michael has joined us. So I want to say hello to Michael. I've said hello to everybody else. So Michael, what do you do? He may be on mute. Okay, maybe we can talk after the program, but I'm going to share my screen so we can get started. Yeah, if we have a small enough group, I like to, have interaction with everybody beforehand. It creates more immediacy, and I just like to find out about people. So as John said, I'm the president of Nation Training and Development. I have taught on the college level for the past 25 years. And I moved to Louisiana for an opportunity about 3 years ago. And while I was there, I was in charge of continuing education. And I started doing some consulting and seminars on the side. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can make this a business. And so I started getting clients. And then I moved back to my hometown of Hot Springs in 2019. And continued my company, and I'm very fortunate to have my clients. And about a year ago, I decided to put together Productivity Nation, which is a Facebook group, and we get on there and talk about productivity principles and how to stay happy. So we are talking today about stress-free strategies. I can get to that slide. There we go. 3 ways to live and work in peace. So let me tell you guys, this is not going to be the typical telling you how to get rid of stress. Oh, meditate. Oh, breathe deep. Drink more water. Exercise. All those things are important. I fully advocate those things, but you're going to hear different things today that you may not have thought about as far as stress reduction. And there I am, and we're going to move on to our webinar preview, which is we are going to focus on confidence, control, and consistency. Now, I teach public speaking, and I tell all of my students, always give a preview of what you're going to talk about so that people can walk you through with you for that presentation. So the first thing we're going to talk about is confidence, having to do with lowering your stress. So your self-worth is a very large part of your confidence. So what composes self-worth? It's these three things. It's social comparisons, reflective appraisals, and scripts. So I think we all get into trouble with Facebook. I love Facebook. I started my Facebook group. I'm able to keep up with family all across the country. But there's dangers to Facebook and Instagram and everything else. Social comparisons. You see somebody with a new house or a new car, or a new whatever, and you start comparing that to your life. I've seen many times in memes, don't compare your bad day to somebody's highlight, because that's what they're putting on Facebook is their highlights. It's a dangerous thing to compare. I hope you have a sheet of paper with you to write down, because I'm going to have you write down a few things. First thing is I want you to write down one thing that is really stressing you out right now. Just focus on one thing. Write that down. And I want you to write down this sentence. Comparison is the thief of joy. We are programmed to compare one another from TV and whatever other media is out there. We are conditioned. All of us are in this age group that we grew up with TV, and what you see on TV is what we're supposed to do. No, that's why we're so unhappy and so stressed. It's because we do that. Comparison is the antithesis of gratitude. Write this down. I choose gratitude with an exclamation point. I choose gratitude. When you have gratitude at the forefront of your mind, like I said, it's the antithesis of social comparison. It helps you be less stressed, because a lot of that stress comes from, oh, I've got to keep up. I've got to keep up. What's wrong with me? I don't have a 5,000 square foot home. What's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. You're on your own path. We're all individuals. The second way that you get self-worth is through reflected appraisals. And again, here's Facebook and Instagram. Reflected appraisals are what other people say about you. So when you're on Facebook and posting things and you hardly get any likes or no comments, that makes your self-worth plummet. Like, oh gosh, they don't like what I said. So what? It doesn't matter if they like or comment or whatever. It doesn't matter. And it's going to take a whole lot more conditioning for you to believe that, because we've been conditioned for so many years. This is an overview of what needs to be talked about. The third thing is scripts. It's the things that you say to yourself. It's, oh gosh, I need to lose weight, or, I'm never going to amount to anything. It's things that you heard growing up that keep going in your mind. There's tapes in your head from long ago, and they're a groove in your brain. They just keep playing and playing and playing. So I want you to take a second and write down it off the top of your head if you have something that you say to yourself that's a negative thing. That's part of your script. And what I want you to do is to turn that script around. In these seminars that I give, I'm trying to raise awareness to things that you may not have thought of before. And, sometimes when people come to these kind of seminars, they have heard this before. But I tell all of my students, write this down too. Repetition is the mother of learning. Repetition is the mother of learning. We're conditioned, so we have to do things over and over again to get deconditioned. So the next thing, another way that you decrease stress is through control. What can you control? I'm about to tell you. There's a list, what you can control and what you cannot control. Well, guess what you can control? You get to control your thoughts. Did you know that you can only have one thought in your mind at a time? It is physically impossible to have a positive and a negative thought in your mind at the same time. When I realized that, it was a beautiful thing. So whenever a negative thought comes, most of the time I'm able to bat it away. A realization, an epiphany came to me years ago that just because a thought enters my mind, it doesn't mean that I have to accept it. it's a random synapse going on in my brain and a random connection. Whatever thoughts that I have are not gospel truth. And some of them, especially the negative ones, there's stuff that's reflected appraisals from other people that were false. That's why it's important to come to seminars like this so that you can find yourself and figure out who you are. So you can control your thoughts. You can also control your actions. You know, no, Zig Ziglar used to say, no one has ever forced me to put, you know, a piece of cake in my mouth. No one. You can always control your actions. Yes, we can be tempted. Yes, if someone makes you really, really, really mad, you still have control over your actions. You can choose to step away. All this is about choice. You can choose to step away, think about what you want to say, and then come back and calmly say it. It's never the right thing to confront right then. Because, you know, we have different parts of our brains. We have the front part of our brain that is the prefrontal cortex. That's our logic right up here. And then we have back here what's called the amygdala. And that's the impulse part of us. So, you know, the prefrontal cortex is the filter. So when the amygdala wants to act up, the prefrontal cortex is like, nope, can't do that. But if you're in anger, that amygdala bypasses that frontal cortex. So what you have to do is settle that amygdala down. And that's why you walk away for a little while, or whatever thing you choose to do. Now that leads us into, you can control your boundaries. Oh my gosh. This is one of the most important things that I'm going to tell you about today. Your boundaries. Did you know that you can set your own boundaries and you can enforce your boundaries? Now, here's what you cannot control. You cannot control the other person's thoughts. You cannot control the other person's actions, and you can't control their boundaries, but you sure can control your own. So much stress is going by somebody else's boundaries. And some people are reticent to speak up and say what they need because they've been conditioned. Maybe they were in a household, children are to be seen and not heard. That's script. So it's important for you to sit back and think, especially if something's bothering you, and to figure out how to set those boundaries, what those boundaries are. And it's up to you. It's totally choice. We have been conditioned to let people walk all over us, or vice versa. So what I really recommend is after this presentation's over, you think through some boundaries. And if somebody is crossing those boundaries with you, you figure out a kind way, a kind and respectful way, going through your prefrontal cortex instead of the amygdala, a kind and respectful way to communicate those boundaries to them. That is such an important thing to do. And if you're in a relationship, if it's a good relationship, when you're kind and respectful to your partner and tell them about those boundaries, they're going to be agreeable to those, or talk to you and see how you can come to a compromise. Now, if they get angry about your boundaries, that is a huge red flag. And that could show that there is some toxicity to that relationship. And you may need to re-examine that as well, because a lot of source of our stress is relationships, maybe people close to us that are violating our boundaries. We're allowed to have boundaries. I don't see this talked about a whole lot, and I want to make sure that people understand that. You have to draw your line in the sand in a kind and respectful way. That is so important. I really hope that you pledge to do that. So the next thing that we're talking about 3 ways that we can live and work in peace, is through consistency. Now, how do we stay consistent? We build habits. I don't like to exercise. I never have. But I am walking every day. And when I do, it feels really good. I decided to do it. Now, on my Productivity Nation Facebook group, a couple of weeks ago, I posted, decide once, do. And I asked them, what does this mean to you? And a lot of them said, you make a decision, and then you go from there. Steve had mentioned earlier, he's part of our webinar today. He had mentioned earlier that he listens to Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins, I read in Awaken the Giant Within, he said, you know, the root of the word decide is to cut in half. So when you make a decision, that's decided. You know, I don't make the decision anymore to exercise. I've made that decision. So I just simply do. Now, there's an app that I have, Don't Break the Chain. So every time I exercise, I put an X on that, and it encourages me to continue. And you're going to have down days. And, you know, if you can't do something every day in a row, you know, take a day off, but make the pledge, I'm not going to skip 2 days in a row. So what I want you to do right now is write down a habit that's going to improve your life. It doesn't matter what it is, something positive that you plan to do starting today. Jot that down and think about that. You know, I met with some clients the other day, and I explained to them about going 70 miles an hour versus 100 miles an hour. And in our society, especially how we've been conditioned, there's something wrong with this if we don't go 100 miles an hour. You know, boom, 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 from one thing to the other, one thing to the other. And we're in a constant state of stress. The hormone cortisol is the stress hormone. And it's the fight or flight hormone that we need if, in case, you know, we're about to have an accident and we have to act really fast. That cortisol is very useful to us. But the cortisol, when someone's violating our boundaries, or there's issues in a relationship, or anything else that's stressing you out, it keeps that cortisol up, up, up all the time. So we've got to figure out a way to settle down and realize it's okay to go 70 miles an hour versus 100 miles an hour. We're actually allowed, write this down, we're actually allowed to not have stress. Imagine that. We're allowed. And that is foreign to a lot of people. About, you mean I don't have to be stressed? I don't have to be busy all the time? No, that's going back to the social comparison. You go at your own rate. You go at your own pace. It's good to have a ritual together before you start your work to settle yourself down. I was reading a book, and the man was a piano tuner. And he said, you know, when he just threw all his tools down, it took him 3 times as long. But when he did the ritual of setting all his tools out ahead of time, it took about 10 minutes. He got the job done in 1/3 of the time because he wasn't searching for things. That's an example of a ritual. You may want to arrange your desk a certain way. So this is part of building habits. You can choose anything that you want to. I want to tell you this. Moment by moment, you have to choose gratitude. I choose gratitude. The bottom line to this whole lesson is the word choice. Write the word down, choice. We always have a choice. The only thing we don't have a choice about is debt. They say death and taxes, but yeah, you've got a choice about that too. You got a choice to pay them or go to jail. It's still a choice. There's a very negative choice, but it's still a choice. So the only thing we don't have a choice about is death. So don't feel like you're backed into a corner. If you're super, super stressed, don't feel like you're backed into a corner. It may be a boundary that you're going to have to set and enforce. So I want to go over what we talked about today. The 3 ways that you can decrease stress in your life. And that's our confidence. That's the self-worth. That's cutting down on the social comparisons, not relying on reflected appraisals, and changing the scripts in our brain. And control. That's the part where you focus on yourself, your thoughts, your actions, your boundaries, and you set those. And then consistency. The things that you're learning with the confidence and control, you build habits with those. Because every day you can reinforce, reinforce, reinforce. Write this down. Repetition is the mother of learning. Repetition is the mother of learning. We have to renew ourselves every day. So learning these 3 things, I hope that you're going to be able to do that. And I hope that you choose gratitude. Now, this is my contact information. If you ever want to get in touch and talk, if you want to be a member of our Productivity Nation Facebook group, just go to Facebook and look up Productivity Nation. We are 500 strong. I think we're at 559 on our Facebook group. You can text me or call me on my cell phone if you ever want to talk about this subject further. I really want to thank John and Laura for inviting me to do this webinar today. I'm very passionate about this topic, and I want to make sure that people are de-stressed from the information that I've gotten. I don't like to waste things, and the information in my brain I like to share with everyone so that we can just overall decrease all of our stress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christi. If we can open it up to any questions, Alex on the microphone, and you can unmute some of the folks as they can ask questions to Christi directly. Does anybody have any questions for Christi?
Not everybody all at once. Come on. That's what I would say in my classroom. I was like, any questions? And I really meant it. And, you know, they just sit there like crickets. And I'd be like, not everybody all at once.
Well, can you hear me? This is Dr. Carroll.
Doc, how are you?
Well, I'm doing fine. I'm at my phone, and I'm, just went to the Y, and I thought, oh God, I'm gonna miss this this video here today. So I found out how to do it on my phone, and so now I can talk to you as I'm driving home to eat lunch.
Oh, good.
I left my bathing suit. See, if you're too hurried, sometimes you just forget what you're supposed to be doing. And, you know, it's good to be able to just, this is a day that the Lord has made. We'll just all rejoice and be glad in it and forget about all those worries. And the other thing is that I just add to your, is you got to believe it done. Not only do you have the hope and faith, but you just got to believe.
That's right, Doc.
I mean, that's what all I do. I believe. I see miracles all day long. Well, I've had it. I'm gonna have to get off the air. Goodbye.
Bye, Doc. Oh, I adore him. I absolutely adore him and his wife, Deborah. I've known them for 20 years. Oh my goodness.
So Christi, I appreciate Dr. Carroll getting in on that. So you actually relieved him of stress by getting on the on this Zoom by using his phone, because that was probably the first time that he's ever done that before.
Oh, a new skill. That makes me so happy. That's great.
So I was jokingly reminded when you were talking about going through rituals. There used to be a Saturday Night Live rendition done by a guy who actually became a senator, I think in Minnesota, and
Al Franken.
do the smartly the Stuart Smiley would do the affirmations of each day and so forth, and he would start off that I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone people like me.
That's right. He would repeat it to itself. And the funniest part is when he had Michael Jordan in the mirror with him, you know, trying to support himself. And I encourage you to look that up on YouTube. It is so hilarious. But the affirmations are very important. I do Zig Ziglar's affirmations every morning and every evening to reinforce those things to my subconscious mind. So I'm glad that you wrote that.
Does anybody have any other questions for Miss Christi while you've got her live and in person?
I do want to ask, does anyone want to share the one thing that they put on there about what they are stressing about? The one thing? Or about a new habit that you want to do?
Well, I'm stressing for my kids to find jobs in this economy as newly new in the market. And that's stressing me out. I'm kind of, on my way out. So, but a whole lot of that is under the I can't control column. So
that's right. And that's, I hope that, like I said, it's not the typical meditation, drink more water. These are concrete things besides those things that you can do to
Yeah.
decrease your stress.
I'm actually doing all those things right now, and that's been huge.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
Yeah, I think as far as stress, just me going more into a sales position with our company, and just the stress of calling on prospects and the 98 no's, as they call it in sales. 98 out of 100 people are going to say no, they don't want your product. And so for me, it's right now is just the stress of that.
Well, Steve, if you wouldn't mind texting me your first and last name, I would love to get in touch with you and, just have an informal conversation and, kind of point you in the right direction on that. Because I have some clients that I do sales coaching.
Oh, okay.
Christy, if you don't mind putting back up on the screen, if you don't mind, your contact information one more time.
Oh, sure.
And then, Steve, for your benefit, you're talking about the stress of rejection. As Christy said earlier, repetition is the mother of learning. So, for each rejection you get, it's just going to get you closer to acceptance. Okay. So, that's hard to do for anybody, because nobody wants to get rejected, but if you understand that it's basically a numbers game, and that you're trying to build up relationships, and that's all people are saying no to, is just no, not right now, maybe under a different circumstance, or maybe if you call me back in 2 days from now, or maybe if you, that type of thing. So I don't know if that helps you at all and so forth, but
Yeah.
Those are the kind of sales strategies, and basically just, the reason why people want to do business with you, Steve, is because they like you, and that's 80% of the sales process and so forth. Okay.
That's right. It's relationship building.
Yeah, 20% is just on your knowledge and so forth. Okay. So, I'm going to shut up for a while and let Christy talk some more.
Well, I do want to encourage people to share. I like Zoom because I can still interact and ask questions and hear from people. That's one of my favorite things, is the interaction between, students and learning from one another. So, I encourage you to, talk about what you're stressed about or any other questions that you have.
And one more thing, let me just say, as far as what the Reverend was saying there, as far as believing, is to, see yourself in the future doing and being the person that you want to be, and living from that place as if you already have it, or believing, having faith that you've already received it. I found that to be very powerful.
That's the law of attraction, which I know that you're studying.
Right. Yes. Starting to get into the Silva method of thinking, and learning about that. And so there's a number of different angles to go at this from, but yeah, a lot of good stuff.
Good deal. I'm so glad that you guys got to attend. There's my contact information. So if you have any questions or you want to talk, I'm very happy to do that. That's what I do. So you can email me at christi.nation@nationtd.com. That's short for training and development. And there's my cell phone. And, you can text me anytime. And then, we can arrange a phone call if you'd like to. Or, or just text me a question, whatever you'd like.
And Christy, thank you again for joining us today, and we hope to hear from you again in the future, and maybe on a different topic. But we really liked your presentation today. Alex, if there's any other housekeeping that you want to do for us, just go ahead and say it. I'm going to go ahead and mute my microphone right now.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you once again to Christy for presenting to us today. And thank you to everyone that was able to stop in on your break, just taking a breather from work. But thank you for being able to join us today. And next Friday, March 5th, we're going to be hearing from Captain Bradley Hargis about the Salvation Army. So that's going to be really interesting, and it's going to give a lot of very informal information for everybody. So I look forward to seeing everybody next Friday, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks,
Thank you guys for attending.